Hello, everyone, and welcome to the Riverfront Reds Show, the world's most dangerous podcast, part of the Blue Wire Podcast Network. This is episode number 546. Listen, right here we talk about the Cincinnati Reds and occasionally Austin Slater. Rest in peace. I'm your host, Chad Dotson. With me this week, your friend and mine, Chris Garber. How are you, Chris?
Howdy, Chad. How you doing?
Good. It's been a little while since we talked.
Yes, sir. Yes, sir. You've been traveling the globe?
I have been traveling the globe a little bit. Did you notice that?
I did. I'd like to hear about this.
Well, let's talk about it just very briefly here because there's a baseball component to it. So our family, we let the kids decide where they want to go, and they're not really kids. They're one's a teenager, one's a little older than that, so they're not really kids anymore. But we took a family vote for where we're going to go, and those kids ganged up on us. And they decided they wanted to go to Japan and South Korea. So, how many more times are we going to have just the four of us going? They're getting older. I said, let's do it. So we had a good couple weeks in Japan and South Korea. But one of the best things was we went to a baseball game in Japan and another one in Korea, and I just had an absolute blast. I mean, I'll tell you, I thought about you for the first time ever. Someone in Japan has thought about you. Chris Garber. I was just thinking about your description of the what's the tournament you went to there with the boys recently?
Caribbean Series.
Yeah. It's just a lot of fun and everybody excited about it, and that's what we saw over there, which is just they love their baseball and it's just a different game. They watch the game differently, they experience the game, they enjoy the game differently than we do in America, and I feel like we've maybe missing a little something. So in Japan, just quickly, we thought it was going to be rained out. I mean, it started raining at like noon, and not just a drizzle. So we thought, well, they hadn't called it off yet. So we said, we'll head over to the stadium and at least maybe we'll get to see the stadium before they call it off. Well, no, they played in a driving rain for 3 full hours. Everyone showed up in their ponchos with team logos on them. And this was the Yakult Swallows versus the Chunichi Dragons. And everybody was just having a good time. And I was like, wait, in America, they call off games 4 hours before the game, even when the sun's out, just because there's a bad radar. So that was one thing. Yeah.
So how many games did they play like in a week over there? Do they do the same kind of schedule as the major leagues, like 5, 6 games, 7 games a week?
Yes. I don't know how many they play in a season because they only have like 10, 12 teams in each league. But it's roughly the same. I think there's actually one day a week they don't play. In Japan anyway, I think maybe Mondays they don't play. Everyone plays every other day. That was a lot of fun, but we went to the game in South Korea in Seoul. And this was the Doosan Bears versus the Kiwoom Heroes. And Doosan, by the way, the home team, featuring Reds obscure former Red legend Henry Ramos, who didn't get in the game. But that was as much fun. I mean, literally every single person in that stadium at that game was having more fun than I've ever had at a baseball game in my life. And I love baseball. From the time the game started, just dancing and cheering and chanting and singing and cheerleaders and a guy with a microphone, an overweight dude wearing a full uniform with a microphone leading these chants. And I had 2 grandmothers sitting near me, and they knew all the motions, all the dances and hand motions in the song. It was a blast. It was really, really genuinely eye-opening. I enjoyed it. You need to do it sometime.
It sounds awesome. I mean, people actually enjoying professional baseball.
What's that like?
Sounds foreign to me.
Literally. Excuse me. No, it was good, and it did make me. I know in America it's we take in a game, as George Carlin said, and I love it. I like going to the ball yard and having a beverage and enjoying the game. But that was something. I enjoyed it. So anyway, that's my my recap of our time in Japan and South Korea. We did other things besides baseball, but that was fun. let's talk trade deadline. You want to, Chris Garber?
Desperately.
I know you've been bugging me since the deadline passed. Let's talk about the trade deadline. So let's before we get into some of the other things that happened this week that we're going to end up talking about, let's kind of run through the transactions, because the Reds actually made some moves, if you can call it that. So let's run through them and say where we are.
I'm sure we'll from sharing this information, we'll be able to see a pattern that reveals the team's overall strategy.
Oh, I'm sure we will. So first move, the Reds acquired Ty France plus a cool $1 million from the Seattle Mariners. They traded a low A level catcher in exchange, but Ty France, that guy was an all-star 2 years ago.
Excellent. He's 30 years old. He's an established veteran major leaguer, sure to get better as the years go on.
Exactly. Now, he made an all-star team, but ignore the fact that he was designated for assignment right before this trade. So
it happens.
It happens sometimes. But Ty France, welcome to Cincinnati. Next, the Reds traded their opening day starter, Frankie Montas. They acquired Jacob, I guess. I don't know how to pronounce his last name, and Joey Weimer, plus the ever popular cash considerations from the Brewers. Now,
so they're adding a veteran outfielder, and they're getting rid of a veteran pitcher. Got it? Okay, continue on, please.
Yeah. So I see where you're going. Your wheels are turning. You're trying to divine a strategy here.
All makes sense so far.
Weimer, once the Brewers' number 3 prospect, he is hitting a robust 201 this year, but he did play for the University of Cincinnati Bearcats. And so, yay. The Reds then traded their longest tenured player. Now, if you had asked me, Pete Rose does not play for the Reds anymore. Oh. Hey, have you watched the new Pete Rose documentary on HBO?
I haven't seen it yet. I heard it might reveal the darker side of Pete.
Surely not. Is there a darker side of Pete Rose?
I haven't seen the show yet.
Oh, okay. All right. Well, we'll have to watch that to find out, because I've never heard anything but glowing things. Yeah. So if you had asked me who the longest tenured player was for the Reds, I might have guessed Lucas Sims. I probably would have, but it would have taken me a minute. Lucas Sims to the Boston Red Sox.
Is gone. He's a Red Sox.
That's right. Traded in exchange for a minor league relief pitcher, Ovis Portes. Now, can you tell me anything interesting about minor league relief pitcher who's been in rookie ball and single A this year?
I can.
Tell me something about it.
He's got a live arm. He's a kind of an interesting guy. But the thing that surprised me is he is the first professional baseball player in the United States signed out of the Antigua and Barbuda. They're in the Caribbean, I believe.
Yes.
Which kind of shocks me. I mean, of all the years we've been playing ball, all the different islands and countries and the strong baseball that's come out of the Caribbean, they have not yet found a guy from that particular area. And I don't know, is Antigua and Barbuda one island? Is it two islands that join together to form a nation?
It sounds like at least two.
Yeah, that's what I thought too. I just want to make sure because, I mean, honestly, they should probably give credit to whichever island it is. I'm checking. I've been told it is two islands.
All right.
So we don't know which island Mr. Portis is from, but it's one of them.
I'm sure our crack research staff can figure that out before next week. I've been to Antigua, Guatemala, but not Antigua and Barbuda. Antigua and where is it? What's it? Barbuda. See, I thought I was a world traveler, and now I couldn't remember. Live arm, I guess. Whatever. Trade Lucas Sims for him. Next, the Reds traded Austin Slater and Livan Soto to Baltimore. Austin Slater and Livan Soto, 8 total appearances for the Cincinnati Reds. And it's a fact. This is an absolute fact. Austin Slater is a player that played for the Reds this year. Now, if you tell me that 5 years from now, I won't believe it, but it's true.
So Austin Slater, I haven't been paying that much attention. Sounds probably it's a guy that's been in the Reds system for a long time. They've had a look at him. They signed him cheap. They just figured out, okay, that he's not in our plans. Now we have Ty France. Is that right?
No, that's
No?
not right. He was acquired recently from, I don't know, I think he played for the beer league softball team from Saved by the Bell, I believe.
Excellent.
I'm
Excellent.
not positive about that, but again, we'll get our crack research step on that.
So,
hey, do you know what the Reds acquired for
cash considerations?
Oh, maybe. See, we don't know yet. It's either a
TBD.
player to be named later or cash considerations.
Oh man.
See?
MVP of the Reds. Cash considerations.
Cash considerations.
So Slater's been a Red for like 3 weeks.
Yeah, basically.
And they gave something to the Giants to get him. Screwed around with him for a week. Then got Ty France, who was, I guess, the 2.0 version of Austin Slater. And Austin Slater is now sold off. Got it?
That's high praise. Austin Slater 2.0. That's high praise.
All right. They're not done, though, are they?
Oh, they're not done. They're not done, baby.
I mean, I've got a complete picture. These moves already create a complete picture of an organization in complete array. Not disarray, but array.
They're in array. Exactly. Well, listen to this next one, and then let's see if that maybe possibly either clarifies it more or, yeah. The Reds received infielder Davis Wenzel from the Rangers. Ooh. Now, this is a little bit of a curveball. Wenzel, of course, 27 years old, made his major debut this year. He's hitting a robust 128, former first-round pick out of Baylor.
All this sounds right according to plan so far. What's different?
Well, there's one thing that's not different is that this is another acquisition for the Reds who was recently designated for assignment. So not exactly in the Rangers' plans, but in this trade, the Rangers received the cash considerations.
Oh my.
So the Reds may be turning around some of that cash they were receiving those earlier deals and send it on to Texas. What do you think about that?
Easy come, easy go. And this guy is an infielder, which makes him different from the other aging, underachieving semi-prospects they're acquiring.
Exactly.
Okay, got it.
All right, so that's the Reds' trade-deadline activity.
The Reds, they had some holes in the lineup. They also had some veteran guys. What else did they do? Did they trade away one of their veterans who might be blocking a younger player? Did they bring in fill some holes? What else did they do?
Well, I did see an article today that said that Jonathan India is happy that he wasn't traded because he loves it here.
Oh, well, I'm glad. What I like about the Reds coverage, and people complain, they say they don't ask tough questions. They say that they don't hold the feet to the fire of the organization. The local media never breaks a trade. But what you do get regularly is a regular status report on the happiness and the contentedness of the Reds players. And I, for one, am glad that if they're happy, I'm happy.
Well, we complain a lot, those of us of a certain advanced age, about how the media just wants to focus on negative all the time. Our politics, there's plenty to be negative about. But you have to give some kudos. And I appreciate the fact that you did that here, that you called out local Reds media for telling us about who's happy.
I like to call people in. I don't like to call them
in. Right? You called them in. And you could not be more correct. We need more coverage. We need more fawning articles telling us who's happy. Because, baseball's supposed to be fun. I like happiness.
It's fun. It's a game. You don't work a game of baseball.
That's right.
And I just think it's very good that these guys get along, that they've made friends, that the workplace is harmonious. That's the scoreboard for me.
Well, look, the real trade deadline is the friends we made along the way. Right?
No. Yes.
All right, so back to the strategy. The strategy, Oh my goodness.
I mean,
So,
look, I got to be honest at this point, Chad. I was kidding around. I said it all made sense. I got to say it doesn't make a lot of sense. They made some moves that were kind of buying. They made some moves that were kind of selling. The team is pretty far down in the standings, right?
they are.
They were expecting to do well. They're not quite there, but they're not way out of it either. So did anybody talk to the management of the Reds and get their perspective? Exactly. Maybe they can explain it, shed some light on it, probably in an eloquent way. What exactly has been going on this trade deadline? I know you're out of the country. Maybe you missed it, but has anybody talked to anybody in the organization?
Funny you mentioned that. Funny you ask, because Reds president of baseball operations, Nick Krall, had a thing or two to say that helped to clarify Cincinnati's strategy.
Oh, that's good. That's good.
Yeah.
That's good. This is going to make me feel better.
Yeah, no, it will. It will. No question about it. So here's what Nick Krall had to say. 5 trades in 2 days, first of all. Come on. We were complaining last year about no activity other than getting Sam Moll at the deadline. Not this year. 5 trades in 2 days.
He can't win. He can't win with us. That's fair.
No, he can't.
Fair point.
We're going to criticize him no matter what.
We're going to criticize them whether they win 72 games or whether they win 76.
Exactly. So here's Nick Krall. He says it was more about trying to thread the needle and do both, because the question is about buying and selling. It was more about trying to thread the needle and do both, as opposed to just buy or sell. Oh, okay. Well, that's good.
Not many teams will do that. And this fits, right? I mean, threading the needle, trying to do both. It's kind of like avoiding the peaks and valleys.
Yeah.
This is a very clear strategy now that's finally starting to come together from my perspective. Okay. Got it.
So, I'm maybe I'm wrong here, and I'm not going to ask you to address this, but I'm detecting maybe a tiny note of sarcasm, and I don't think it's fair, because
no, that's not accurate. That's not
okay.
Fair.
Good.
It's all good faith here.
Yeah. No other MLB executive would try to thread the needle at the trade deadline. Come on, who would do that? We're talking about 8D chess here.
I just don't. I mean, so Krall also told us that he tried to make some other deals, and either he asked for too much, or the other guys asked for too much, or he asked for too little, or it didn't work out, which I know it happens, and I'm serious about that. But what would it have looked like if all the deals he wanted to make, he'd been able to make? You know, was he going to trade away 4 infielders and then bring in 3 relief pitchers? Or was he like, I don't understand how it was supposed to. He had to have a vision, right? Like, here's where I want to end up. And I get, maybe you could say, I'm going to trade some of this excess bullpen for an outfielder. But don't the pieces have to fit together in the puzzle? Guy's got 2 different puzzles going on his table at once.
Well, again, only Nick Krall. Only Nick Krall. And obviously we're being a little silly here, but and we understand Nick Krall has some constraints, and we're going to talk a little bit more about the constraints from higher up in the food chain of the organization here in a little bit. But I have to get there are more quotes, Chris. There are more quotes from Nick Krall that.
So have I been judging prematurely?
Yes, you don't know the entire picture yet.
Oh, please continue.
All right. So about the Frankie Montas trade. Well, it does look like a sell on paper. But at the same time, we got 2 guys back that can both help this year's club, and one that can help into the future and be a very productive player. So see, it looks like a sell on paper, but
Yeah.
8D chess.
So just for the listeners at home, the pitcher the Reds got back is a free agent at the end of the year, just like Frankie Montas.
Correct.
So there's a mutual option, which none of those have ever been exercised in the history of contracts.
That's true.
So they traded. I mean, okay. Like that's just one of those things. He's like, well, yeah, we sold, but if you look at it a different way, we bought.
Right, exactly. I love it.
Okay.
And listen, Joey Weimer, how do you even pronounce it?
Weimer.
That's what I thought. I don't mind having that guy. You see Bearcat, I guess.
I wonder Chad, if the broadcast teams for the Cincinnati Reds have been informed about that affiliation?
Unlikely. You would have heard him.
Yeah, who knows? That guy may be good. He may be, I don't think he'll be great, but he might be really good. Reading the scouting report on it, he reminds me of a right-handed Will Benson, which, kind of a big dude, fast, athletic, strikes out too much, has power, maybe not living up to his potential so far. I mean, a year ago, you and I both would have said that sounds awesome.
Yeah, true. Today it sounds like damning with faint praise.
Yeah, right.
Yeah. All right. Can I give you another Krall quote?
Please.
You and I established.
There's nothing I like better than Nick Krall talking.
I know. Well, this is episode 546 of this show, and I don't know, it's probably episode 200. I don't know when it was, but one of my favorite episodes was entitled Nick Krall, Bad at Talking. And that's been a consistent theme here at the Riverfront. So this one about the Lucas Sims trade. Very similar quote to the one we just heard. Selling a bullpen piece? All right, I get it. It's selling. But being able to get something for him versus losing him or somebody else on waivers, we thought this was the best idea. See? It seems like they're selling. And if you look at it through a different lens, it actually is.
I mean, I would be fine with selling. Again, I would be fine with selling. They're not very good. They're not going to catch up to a Milwaukee. They probably aren't going to catch up to the playoffs. Sell away.
So there's another quote or two here, but that's a question I want to ask you, which is that, is it just that they can't admit because there was so much hype? The kids are here, so now we're moving forward. They're trying to convince the fan base, and we're going to talk more about what they need to do to convince the fan base. But is it just that they can't admit to that they were actually? Well, they weren't actually selling. They were doing both. Who knows what they were doing? Is we talk about a strategy? Is the strategy just to have no strategy? I'm confused. I'm genuinely confused.
I am too. I mean, the best way I would describe their strategy, at least as evidenced over the last week, is do stuff. Like they're just doing stuff. I don't know that there's anything that ties it together. I don't know if there's any underlying strategy behind it, but they were doing stuff. Maybe they had like different people in the front office, like Nick Krall's like, Hey, Fred, you're going to be in charge of buying, and Joe, you're going to be in charge of selling. And he got them all ready, and he was going to pick which one was going to do their thing, and then he accidentally told them both to just go ahead.
You made me think that just do something. I guarantee I haven't been on social media much recently for good reason, but I guarantee there has to be. And I'm sure someone will send it to me on Twitter after I say this, because there's got to be one of this contingent of Reds fans who are just Nick Krall is the best, and that he not trying to improve on a team that was in first place at the last year's trade deadline was obviously the right deal. One of that contingent, I guarantee, has a tweet out there that says, he made 5 trades this year. What do you all want? You're going to criticize them either way. They were doing stuff. They're trying to do stuff. And last year they didn't, and you criticize them too.
I think that's it. Cincinnati Reds 2024, doing stuff.
Doing stuff. All right. So trading Montas to the Brewers. The question here was, how does trading it Montas to a division rival not look like a short-term surrender of the division? Here's Nick Krall's quote. We felt the best return was there, and that's why we went that way as opposed to trying to put him somewhere else. We could have moved him to a handful of other teams, but we felt the best return, the best place for us moving forward. It helped us get Eunice as a guy that's going to slot in our bullpen, and Weimer's got a chance to be a long-term fit in the outfield. So we like the overall return. Okay, that's fine. And I don't have a problem with trading Montas, frankly. They signed him to trade him. They signed him with if something went great and the Reds were in first place again this deadline, great, they'll keep him. But they signed him to trade him.
Right. Yeah. I'm just mad that they're not doing well enough that they would want to keep him. But exactly. Yeah, this is the right thing to do.
Yeah, I have no problems with it. No problems whatsoever. Now, the last one, we could go back and count, but this quote, maybe not exact words, but very close. We get every single year. And it's an annual tradition here. It's a tradition unlike any other. Well, we looked at it from a couple different angles. We also talked to some teams about potentially acquiring a starter over the last couple of days as well. We thought we had a chance to make a run at somebody to bring back in here that was more of a longer-term fit than short-term. We just didn't end up getting the other one. Maybe we would have fought to get a shorter-term rental instead. But look, we tried. We tried, and it didn't work out for us. They tried. What do you want, Chris Garber? They tried.
I just want them to try hard and be friends with each other. That's what I want, and have fun.
Let's see. Do we have any other fun quotes here? I'm scrolling down. He said he's not going to comment on the market for Jonathan India. But at the same time, he's been a player that's been an impactful player for this team. And he brings a lot of qualities to this team right now.
He did not say that. A lot of qualities?
Jonathan India brings a lot of qualities to this team right now. That is a direct quote. I love it.
He is a person with a lot of features.
Yes. He has many features, many qualities.
And some traits.
Some traits possibly as well, but he didn't say that. Oh, my goodness. So we're goofing on Nick Krall, and Nick Krall is Nick Krall. And what's he going to say to some of this? And some of these traits I don't have any issues with, we've said, but it's always fun. But I want to compare Nick Krall's quotes. And I think we have our little outline here, but I'm gonna move forward a little bit because you sent. I hadn't read it yet, but I subscribe as well to Joe Posnanski's newsletter at Substack, and it's worth every dime you pay for it. Joe Posnanski's the best sports writer around, and he had an interview with a general manager, and the quotes from that general manager. I want to talk about it now because it's in such stark contrast.
Yeah,
to Nick Krall.
And it's really an amazing piece because the piece that came out on Thursday is about the Kansas City Royals, who lost 106 games last year. There we go. I should have. Is that a Johnny Cueto hat you're wearing?
It's a George Brett cap.
Okay. So the Royals lost 106 games last year, and their manager, JJ Piccolo, decided, you know what? We've rebuilt 1,000,000 times. We've gone through this whole thing. Rather than doing see you in, it's not really about 2024. They went out and they did stuff. They signed Will Smith, the relief pitcher from the Rangers. They signed Seth Lugo for $30 million. They signed Michael Wacha. They got a few other guys, right? Not guaranteed winning players, not guaranteed to do well, but they tried. And they traded, during the season, they've traded some guys away, some prospects, and got some actual players. And what's going on right now? Well, the Royals are in contention, right? The Royals are their fans are having a great time. George Brett's excited, for goodness sakes. And if you listen to what their general manager says, it's just absolutely stunning. I'm going to read a couple quotes out of this article.
Before you do that, let me say this. You said they made a bunch of moves, and none of those moves by themselves move the needle that much, but they were all moves that were designed to try to win this year.
To win. Yeah,
to win this year.
The scene starts in the offseason when Piccolo goes to Royals legend, stalwart, longest tenured Royal, Salvador Perez, and says, hey, I think we might want to trade you. And Perez says, do you think we can win? And he says, we got to hit on these things. We got a lot of moves that have to go right. I can't tell you we're going to win next year. All I can tell you is we're going to try with everything we've got. And now they didn't end up trading Perez. And now Piccolo says, I think I've come a long way. I was always a, quote, development person. I always chose development over winning in the minor leagues. I admit I probably spent more of my time thinking about the future than the present. And I think as an organization, we were too much in development mode, too much in prospect mode, spent too much of our energy asking, how do we change training methods? How do we build the system to prepare for the future? All that's important, obviously, but I think we were too caught up in that. And one day I asked our staff, what's our job here? When you get down to it, what's our job? We know what it is. Our job is to put people in the seats. And the only way to do that is to win games.
Man.
That's a conversation that has not happened at Great American Ballpark, and it is a conversation that needs to happen. They're always focused on sustainable competitiveness, or whatever the new buzzword is that we'll get to in a minute. They never really think about, what do the fans want? They want to see a good team that wins games. What do we have to do to win the daggone games? They need to have that conversation that JJ Picollo had with his staff.
It's really fascinating. And two things about that. Number one, the first is that conversation with Salvador Perez, a Royals Hall of Famer. And the Royals I've been to Kauffman Stadium. They have a nice little Hall of Fame area. Not as nice as the Reds Hall of Fame, but Salvador Perez. When I read that, and then again when you were talking about it just now, I was thinking, why didn't someone go have that conversation with Joey Votto? A club legend, and we're going to try to win. We're going to try to win for you. And maybe not this past off season, but 2 years ago, whenever, sometime in recent years.
Here's another parallel, Chad. The Royals have the most exciting, or one of the most exciting, one of the best young players in baseball, Bobby Witt Jr.
Shortstop.
A shortstop, a dynamic speed and power combination who thrills the fans on a nightly basis with highlights on the defense and offensive side of the ball. And what did they do last offseason with Bobby Witt Jr.? They signed him to a 10-year deal. Why? Because he's awesome and the fans love him and he's really good at baseball. And it's probably a smart thing to do money-wise. The Reds are in the same spot.
Yeah.
And we're already starting to hear, and not from the team, but we're already starting to hear, 2028, maybe they'll have to trade him, 2027. I cannot believe I'm sitting here envious of the Kansas City Royals.
No, right?
It's a ridiculous position to be in.
Well,
not only are they better now, they also got a World Series.
Right. That's where I was going. They've gotten one way more recently. Well, every team has gotten one, just basically more recently than the Reds. But I know what some of you are going to say out there in Middletown. Oh, well, what Scott Boras represents Ellie. They're not going to be able to sign into that. See, you're missing. If that's what your reaction was just now, you're missing the point of this entire conversation. It's not a thing the Reds would do. The Reds would not have signed Ellie De La Cruz, even if they could, to a team. I truly believe they would not. I don't think we'll ever see, while the Castellinis are in charge. More to come there. A contract as long as, let's say, 10 years. Joey Votto's was 24 years, a 24-year contract. I don't know. We'll never see a long-term deal like that again. We just won't. It's funny how some of these teams that are trying to win, that's a great strategy, man. I keep looking at the Atlanta Braves. The Atlanta Braves. Everybody in Cincinnati talks about all the injuries, etc. Well, yeah, the Braves have had a few as well, and they're managing.
They keep getting players. I mean, the closing quote from that article, and this will be the end of the JJ Picollo show. The older I get, the more I understand. You just can't play for the future. You can't just play for the future. The future isn't guaranteed, and the present is where we are. We had the same conversation a year ago.
Yeah. Yeah. Well, and I started to say, I hate to say I told you so, but I don't hate it. I love saying I told you so. It wasn't just us, but there were a lot of people telling us we were idiots last year at the trade deadline, that, it's not about 2023. I mean, you can't choose. And that's what we were saying at the time. We're wrong about stuff all the time. I'm not saying we're infallible or we're always right, but you can't choose when you're going to compete. And the Reds said, no, we're going to defer. And the reason why is it comes back to the quote of, what's our job? In Cincinnati, the job is not to put butts in the seats. The job is not to win games. It has not been the job of management. Nick Krall would love to win games, I'm sure. He has constraints, and I'm sure as well that that make his job different than what a job is of a general manager that's trying to win games. And that last quote you just had, immediately I thought back to the trade deadline and all our conversations with, you can't pick and choose when you're in contention. And it just a year later, the way things have gone, it bums me out, man. It just bums me out.
I mean, doesn't anybody wish that they'd gone for it? Don't we all now, in retrospect, wish they'd gone for it last year? Go back and look at the prospects that everyone was so afraid to trade a year ago. Where are
Connor
they now?
Phillips.
Yeah. Where's he? Chase
He's
Petty.
out.
How's he doing?
Yeah.
I mean, all these guys, maybe they'll still be great, but when you have a chance to win, when you have a chance after a million years, you can't just wave it on by and hope for the next, hope the next person when you're hitchhiking, hope the next car has got a pretty girl in it.
Well, and that gets back to something you were saying a moment ago. Sustainable winning was the new buzzword this week that we heard. Sustainable winning, that's what they want. Before it was, Krall clumsily said peaks and valleys. No, we don't want any more peaks and valleys. And here's what I say. We've been in a valley for 3 decades mostly. If the Reds had gone for it and given us something to cheer about, man, that buys a lot of goodwill. I will take that. I'll take a valley, I guess, if I can get a Kansas City Royals World Series, right? I can handle the lack of sustainable winning because nobody believes the Reds are going to be able to achieve this quote unquote a sustainable winning dream. It's not going to happen. It's not happening under this management yet. It's not going to happen. If you believe in this crew, okay, fine, but you're an idiot.
Yeah, I mean, when's it going to start?
Right.
You can't sustain something you haven't done at all. Anyway.
And I would, again, if you're not subscribed to Pisnansky, go subscribe because it was an incredible piece. And the last thing I want to say about it here is just that the idea of I used to be a prospect guy. I mean, it's a conversation that is you sit and you're right. It hasn't happened and it needs to happen in Cincinnati, but it's so perfect for where the Reds are now and for what they've been quote unquote trying to do. And it's the problem is that they're not going to have that conversation. I have zero faith they're going to have that conversation. And so we'll keep getting what we get.
They're having other conversations in the building. They had some other conversations this week that made some folks very happy. Tell us about those?
You're going to make us go there, aren't you?
I think we need to.
Yeah, I think we have to.
I mean, it's not anywhere we didn't expect. It's not anything new. It's putting a label on things that are already true, and it ain't good news for any Reds fan.
It's such an interesting juxtaposition to the conversation we just had. Golly, are we really envious of the Kansas City Royals? Oh, my goodness. So the Reds did not have that conversation, but they did announce a couple of big moves, 2 front office promotions this week, just before they took the field against the Cubs on Wednesday. One is that Doug Healy, the Executive Vice President, Chief Financial Officer, he's being promoted to COO and CFO. Okay, whatever. I don't know.
Probably a good numbers guy.
Yeah, go Doug. I'm not objecting to that. The other is this. Your new President and Chief Executive Officer of the Cincinnati Reds, National League Baseball franchise, is Phil Castellini. Who has earned it? I mean, you have to admit it. And we're going to criticize it, but you have to admit he's earned that.
Now, I'm not familiar. Is this so Bob Castellini is the team owner, and I remember he had some son who was crazy. He got up on TV. He went to the Rosie Reds. He said all kinds of crazy stuff. and made everyone really mad at the organization. He had to apologize. He just kept doubling down. He like called out the fans, said a bunch of nasty stuff. So I know that's not who we're talking about. I don't remember that guy's name, but this must be a different son of the owner who happens to be an excellent manager they're going to entrust the club full control. Baseball, business, fan relations, media, all of it. Which son is this?
Well, it must be a different one because I'm looking at the quote now from Bob Castellini. And Bob Castellini, this was a press release because, well, I'm not going there. But anyway, these changes in our organization recognize the excellent work being done by Phil and Doug in leading our business. So it must be someone different. Excellent work. Well,
sustained excellence, Chad. Sustained excellence is rewarded.
Sustained excellence.
It's staggering. It's mind-boggling. It's infuriating. It's frustrating. It makes me sad. It makes me mad. What am I going to do about it, right? The guy's dad owns the team. I guess this is the passing of the torch. Now, the press release does say that despite all of this and despite all of these promotions and all of these people raised to lofty positions, that Mr. Castellini Sr. is still making all the decisions. Was that how the press release read?
Basically, yeah. With these moves, Bob Castellini retains control and managerial responsibility over all business and baseball operations. But
I'm not going to screw around with that one. He still owns the team. I guess he can still fire those guys, but it does sound like they're running the show.
No question about it. There's no question. Bob Castellini has not been running the day-to-day operations for a while. That's the scuttlebutt coming out of Cincinnati. One more quote from Bob Castellini
attributed
to Bob.
He did not sit for an interview, right? This is a press release only.
The press release only, exactly. So Phil Castellini and Doug Healy, quote, are in lockstep with Nick, that's Nick Krall, Nick's vision for the Reds baseball model to produce sustainable winning, and are committed to advancing all aspects of our operations towards that goal. Well, there you go. We're good. They're all together. They're going to get us some sustainable winning.
Lockstep, Chad. That sounds precise, crisp, a little intimidating, to be honest with you.
A little bit. Oh,
look, folks, if you like the way things are going, good, because how things are now is how things are going to continue to be. Yes. There is nobody coming to save you, Reds fans. This is what you're going to get. I hope Nick Krall's vision for sustained winning materializes, that he can thread the needle and avoid the peaks and valleys and do stuff and bring a championship to Reds country. But if you're not happy, if you're checked out, if you are frustrated to the point of buying billboards, tough luck, because the Castellini family, second generation, is running the show, and they aren't going anywhere.
No, Bob's not going to sell the team. And I don't know. We've tried to laugh about this because that's all you can do at this point. I mean, they are who they are. It's not going to change. Maybe they'll get lucky. Like you said, maybe they'll thread the needle. Maybe some of these guys will, but there are certain voices out there that will tell you that you just got to be patient. And I've been done for a while with that argument. And my response is, why? I mean, well, there's a plan. Okay, maybe there is a plan. But what has this management team done to earn the benefit of the doubt. So if they win, I'm going to be watching. I'm watching anyway. They stink, and I'm still watching. We're hopeless, right? But I don't believe there's any hope.
You know, we've talked about this a million times. It's boring to this point, but a generation of fans were missed. A generation of potential Reds diehards checked out. I don't think you can get them back. Not in a town that has Joe Burrow. And I don't think there's the plan. They're there to put butts in seats. The plan can't be threading needles and avoiding peaks and valleys when Joe Burrow is next door. Because he's that, Piccolo's right. It's an entertainment business. The vision is putting people in front of chairs, watching it on TV, and in front of, live and in person. And 500 doesn't do it. I mean, I love the players in the Reds. They got some fun, exciting guys, and I'll keep watching it, and I hope they do well. But I don't think they can kindle the passion that a lot of us had and continue to have in another generation of fans by a goal, an upside, a target that hasn't been met of, we'll win 85 every year. Maybe we'll make the playoffs 2 or 3 years out of 7.
Well, I think that's actually the strategy. That's what sustainable winning means. And you can actually argue that's not a bad strategy in the current, environment in baseball. You just got to get it. What the Diamondbacks do last year, they barely snuck in. But man, that doesn't. Well, anyway, gosh. Why? Last thing here, and then we'll get out because I'm getting frustrated. Our job's to put butts in the seats. The Castellinis, as we know, want to maximize profits. How can they not see that putting butts in the seats do it? Or do they see that but not understand that winning is the only thing that will reliably put butts in the seats?
There's a risk. I mean, I think that's it. I mean, to be fair, they don't have the net worth of a lot of other rich MLB owners. So spending money, trying hard, investing in players, investing in development, investing in Kyle Bodie, those things cost money and you're not guaranteed anything. So they have never had the fortitude, or again, to be fair, in the last 10 years, they've not had the fortitude to take those risks. So that's what I think. They get a hefty revenue sharing check for doing nothing. To date, anyway, they get a hefty TV check, whether they win or lose. And so they haven't had the incentives to push them to really try hard.
I think they should try hard.
They should try hard. They should try harder.
Try harder.
Try hardest.
Try hardest. All right, I'm done with that. The Reds at this point are still sort of, you can squint and say they're they're 9 games back as we record this, and they are not playing on Thursday night. So they're 9 games back of first place Milwaukee, who now features Frankie Montas. I don't know. That's all I'm going to say about that. Chris, good talking to you, buddy.
I think we've talked ourselves into a doom spiral here. And if anybody's still listening, do what you want to do. Go to the ballpark if it's fun. Watch the game if you enjoy it. Go buy a hat. Go buy a foam finger. Buy a bag of peanuts when you go down to Cincinnati. Do what works for you, but don't let anybody make you feel bad if you don't.
Yeah, absolutely. I'm with you. All right, well, that's it. We're done for tonight. That's Chris Garber. I'm Austin Slater. So long, everyone.